In the safety of the Wake County suburb stands a tree with a dark secret about an accusation, law enforcement, torture, and a man left with the scars of injustice.
A tree thousands of people pass by every day, and the secret it holds, a secret this man is talking about for the first time. A robbery, a group of young African-American teens, and a white police chief with a rough reputation.
More than 60 years later, one of those suspects is finally telling his story. WRAL's Gerald Owens is here now with a painful remember of our past. And Gerald, it's not all that long ago.
No, it's not, David. 67 years is not that long ago. I was approached by an Apex resident who grew up knowing about Lynn Council and the scar he has from the hanging. Now, this story won't erase the marks on the back of his neck, but just maybe it'll help us all to remember North Carolina's racist past, which allowed bad-intentioned police officers to operate with impunity. Tall and majestic, thousands of people pass this beautiful tree every day. Few know its ugly secret. 86-year-old Lynn Council does.
That's a tree right there.
The years have slowed his gait and slurred his speech, but they haven't dulled his memory of what happened here on Kildare Farm Road in Cary 67 years ago.
That's a tree right there. So I'll never forget that tree.
Council says he was hanged from this tree in 1952 by two Wake County deputies who wanted to scare him into confessing to a crime he says he didn't commit.
They go take me out here and take me out in the wood and do me in and leave me down here.
This is the first time Lynn Council had been back to that tree since then. He still bears the scar on the back of his neck. At 19, he and 7 other black teenagers were accused of robbing a store outside Apex, something they all denied. Doris Battle's mother was one of the accused.
When I was young, I remember him wearing a scarf around his neck to cover up the scar.
The group was arrested by Apex Police Chief Sam Bagwell. Newspaper articles from the 50s chronicle Bagwell's reputation for brutality and racism. Apex cop on rampage again reads one headline. Another says 2 teenagers barely escaped criminal assault of drunken police chief. During coverage of a trial, a drunk driving suspect testified Bagwell is known to whip people. And in 1954, a Pittsburgh Courier article described him as Apex's rough-riding chief of police.
He was the chief of police from 1948 to 1956.
Historian Toby Holloman grew up in Apex and wrote a book about his hometown. He's now researching Lynn Council's story.
The policeman started asking him questions about did you take the money and so forth, and he got frustrated, and so the policeman just slapped him off the stool.
So Bagwell had they call it a dead hand, and he would hit you with that hand.
The robbery happened outside Bagwell's jurisdiction, so he drove Council to Wake County where he was put in jail. After a day of denials, 2 deputies, friends of Bagwell's, became frustrated.
When they took me out of cell, I was handcuffed.
Council says the deputies drove him to this area of Kildare Farm Road, which was a single-lane dirt road in 1952.
So they walked into the woods and threw the rope over a limb of a large tree, put the noose around his neck, and then the 2 deputies pulled him off the ground.
Council says the deputies held him there for a minute or so before dropping him, then asked him again, where was the money?
I don't want to tell nothing I didn't do.
Barely conscious, Lynn Council was driven back to jail. Mr. Council, has he talked about this often in his lifetime?
No. Prior years, he wouldn't talk about it at all. I tried to talk to him before, and he would break down and cry.
How you doing today?
I'm doing just fine.
He says his leg bothers him at times. Other than that, he is right with the Lord, who he credits for saving his life.
Jesus stepped in. They met a thunder. God. He stepped in. He know I didn't do it. He know.
This story is not about Wake County or Apex today. It's about a man who stood tall like this tree. A man who in the twilight of his life wants us never to forget a time when liberty and justice were not for all. Do you think there are more Lynn Councils out there we don't know about?
I have no doubt. Probably a good many have passed away now because of the passage of time, but I have no doubt.
Did you think you were going to die when they hung you up there?
Well,
You still have a scar, don't you? the Apex Walk of Honor, and all the police chiefs who have served this community over the years. Our story about Lynn Council and the brutal treatment he received in 1952 compelled the current chief to flip this brick over. We'll tell you why Monday at 6 on WRAL. The outpouring of support has been overwhelming for Lynn Council. At 86, he is a soft-spoken man who is not used to a lot of attention. Now he's getting it. He's hearing words like "I'm sorry" and "never again" from the same departments he says brutalized him and nearly took his life 67 years ago. The last time Lynn Council walked into the Apex police station, he was 19, in handcuffs, and charged with a crime.
How are you? You're doing well.
I'm doing just fine.
The last time he sat before the chief of police, he says he was slapped across the face so hard it knocked him to the floor.
I want to hear your story directly.
This time was vastly different.
In my younger days, I had it sort of rough.
A sympathetic police chief listened to counsel recount the injustice he suffered in his youth. Former Chief Sam Bagwell, a man with a reputation for racism and brutality, arrested counsel and 7 other teenagers in 1952, accusing them of robbing a store, something they all denied. But because it happened outside his jurisdiction, Bagwell drove counsel and the others to the Wake County Sheriff's Office, where counsel was singled out.
Took me out in the cell, brought me out in the country, and hung me.
Counsel says 2 deputies hanged him from this oak tree, which still stands along Kildare Farm Road, hoping that he would confess to the crime. He says they let him down when he didn't talk. The deputies were never charged, nor was Chief Bagwell.
Mr. Counsel, I can't fix what happened to you. I can't change the past, but I can acknowledge it. And I can, on behalf of the town and the police department, apologize for the role that we had in this.
Current Chief John Letney says Bagwell didn't deserve to wear the badge. One day after our first story on Lynn Council aired, Chief Letney took action, removing Bagwell's brick from the Apex Walk of Honor, a memorial to past chiefs.
It did not seem fitting that his name be displayed along with everyone else.
You could say Lynn Council's life changed after our initial story. This VIP reception at his church in Apex was something he never expected. A man whose personal injustice stayed buried inside him for all those years was suddenly a household name.
I'm extremely proud to be standing here today as your Wake County Sheriff and in honor of Mr. Council.
Thank you for everything. Yes, sir. And we got you. It will never happen again, sir.
The Sheriff's Office, an entire community, now honor Lynn Council 67 years later.
It's a special day for me. And I surely enjoyed it and appreciate everything.
This is a key to the Wake County Sheriff's Office, and it has your name inscribed on it.
With one small gesture, the present reconciles with the past.
You are officially and permanently a part of this office, sir. And thank you.
Thank you.
But how do you apologize to 86-year-old Lynn Council? He says he was hanged by 2 Wake County deputies in 1952 who were trying to scare him into confessing to a robbery he didn't commit. This ceremony was an attempt to right the wrong that had festered inside this Apex resident for 67 years.
They were wrong. Hanging a person for no reason.
On behalf of the Wake County Sheriff's Office, I want to apologize to you for what happened to you by members of this office.
The tree still stands along Kildare Farm Road in Cary. Lynn Council still bears the scars on the back of his neck. The deputies involved that day were never charged. They died long before Lynn Council would ever share his story beyond family and friends.
Everyone was involved. They don't go on.
Sheriff Gerald Baker went so far as to take down the picture of former Sheriff Robert Pleasance, the man in charge when Lynn Council was hanged.
We viewed it as the leadership at that time was involved in that, and we don't want to celebrate that.
Another way to assure Lynn Council and all citizens of Wake County that it is a new day.
And I can assure you that that won't happen again, not harder.